1 second. And there we go.
Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Cowboys Roundup, and we finally know the new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. The 10th in franchise history is Brian Schottenheimer. Yes, the son of Marty Schottenheimer. We might be seeing Marty Ball come to Dallas and not, in the way that we thought. And the whole process has just been lackluster, to say the least. But we now know who the coach is. We now know what the direction they're going to go in. Now our attention is going to turn to what does this team have to do to get over the hump, get this team on track? Are they screwed? We're going to go over all that, and then finally we will be reacting to the press conference that will be taking at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time as Brian Schottenheimer is announced as the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm Space Cowboy Media. I got my brother here, Cowboys Beat. What's going on, Chris? How you doing today?
Hey, my eyes opened, and everybody that I love is healthy, so everything else is a plus.
Awesome. Well, that's great to hear. And we're going to just dive straight into it because we have about 50 minutes until the press conference. So I'm not sure how long we're going to take talking about this, but let's first discuss the coaching search. So, as we knew it to how we got here, as soon as Mike McCarthy, keep in mind, Mike McCarthy declined the option that he was given to come back as the Cowboys head coach. He was like, I ain't doing this. I ain't dealing with this. He leaves, right? Then the first thing we hear is Dion going to be the next head coach of the Cowboys? And then we kind of had that rumor going for a bit. He was the betting favorite. Then they interviewed a couple guys. They interviewed Kellen Moore, right? And then he was the betting odds favorite. Then they were talking about Robert Saleh and Leslie Frazier, but we kind of understood those were Rooney Rule type of conversations. So of course we weren't seriously looking at that. But then a name came up, I want to say like a couple days ago, and I believe we even talked about it on the last show. As we were talking about who they were looking at, who we would want, all that other stuff. And Brian Schottenheimer's name came up. And then all of a sudden she shot up to being the betting favorite. Like he was at a plus 7,000 to be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys if you were a betting odds guy. And you were like, hey, if I bet $10, I'd make a hell of a lot of money on that. But they talked to him a couple times. He's now the head coach, and now we're starting to see the staff get put together. There's rumors that Matt Eberflus is going to come in here and be the DC. However, that's not been fully confirmed. And we're going to talk about, first the initial hire. I'm going to start with you, my guy, because I know we had conversations behind the scenes about what it would look like if he was hired, how it would feel. But how are you feeling about this hire as of today, now that it's been a couple days since he's been officially hired?
So here's the thing. I have a problem with the process about hiring Brian Schottenheimer, right? I don't think they did enough to, actually look and say, hey, they did enough here to make you think that they did an expansive coaching search. I mean, we talked about the four guys that they interviewed. They interviewed Brian, they interviewed Kellen Moore, they interviewed Leslie Frazier and Robert Saleh. I don't think that either of those two guys, Robert Saleh or Leslie Frazier, were legitimate candidates. So that's where I look at that and say, all right, so it was essentially down to two people. It was Kellen and Brian Schottenheimer, essentially. I just think that that's a flawed process. I wish that the Cowboys would have done a little more of an expansive coaching search. But in terms of Brian Schottenheimer, I really like Brian Schottenheimer. I think that Brian Schottenheimer could be a very good coach. I hear the way, that the guys talk about Brian Schottenheimer, and my Lord, the sun is way in my way.
The sun is still rising, ladies and gentlemen. So we're
I gotta work on that. But I like Brian Schottenheimer. But I just don't like the process that they went about going with this coaching search. I don't believe that Brian Schottenheimer was the best candidate. I think if you were to ask me the candidates that I would like, I would have preferred Joe Brady, Liam Cohen, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Bill Belichick, John Gruden, a few other guys in there. But I mean, ultimately, Brian Schottenheimer is the choice, and we'll see what happens here, right? And the Cowboys have a chance to prove a lot of people wrong with this coaching search. And, if they hit on Brian Schottenheimer, there's going to be a lot of pie on people's face about that. But give
But
me 1 second. I just got to do
yeah,
something real quick.
yeah,
And
sure, no problem. I'm gonna get my point across. Yeah, do what you got to do, my guy. So let's talk about where we're at right now. And I think one of the biggest things is that when we talk about the Dallas Cowboys and their process, to what my buddy pointed out, the one thing I don't like is how they went about this entire thing. It felt like they rushed it for no reason. They never even thought to even go and talk to any other candidates outside of their comfort zone. It was really straight up, hey, we just want to do this, this, and that is it. And then the other thing is that you internally promote the guy that was the offensive coordinator for the former head coach that didn't call plays, but there are rumors that he was the reason that this entire offense started humming at the end of 2023. But to his point, the process is flawed. And that's something I really don't like, is how the Dallas Cowboys want to sit there and act like, oh, we're going to find something that no one else would find, right? And that's the part that bugs the hell out of me, is that they always try to act like they're the smartest people in the room and not get out of their comfort zone. And so I'm not going to sit here and defend the Joneses whatsoever. And there's also, and we're going to get into this in just a second, I'm not getting mad at Brian Schottenheimer for taking the job. None of us are. I think a lot of us should be upset and our energy should be directed towards the Joneses, like basically just here you go, and not even trying to look at other candidates. Again, Brian Schottenheimer could be fantastic. If he's anything like his dad, you're going to win a lot in the regular season, and you're going to have problems in the postseason. That's just how Marty Schottenheimer was. But the one thing that he has known to do is run the ball well and just have those really damn good run attacks, which we've been wanting here in Dallas. Now, the one other thing I wanted to get to was talking about not just the process of them going out and hiring him, but it's also this. It feels like, not even that it feels like, I know this for a fact, they weren't prepared for Mike McCarthy to tell them no. And to me, them promoting Brian Schottenheimer is in essence them saying, hey, we want to keep the same apparatus that we had with the Mike McCarthy project, but with just a different name. Now, we did hear, by the way, you guys, it is a 4-year deal. 4-year deal. And that aligns with Dak Prescott's contract and CeeDee Lamb's contract. So to me, I think they're just going to ride this out. And for those that think that Brian Schottenheimer is going to get fired, if let's just say the Cowboys have like ridiculously terrible seasons, they're not going to fire him. They're not. The Cowboys, for their past 3 coaching hires, last 3 coaches, have let those contracts expire before they went ahead and renewed them, or just let them walk. So,
yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. And look, I like Brian Schottenheimer a lot, and there were a lot of people internally who had a lot of good things to say about Brian Schottenheimer. And here's the thing. The reason why, there is a part of me that does like this hire a whole lot, because he was a guy who studied trends around the league when he was an analyst for this football team back in 2022. He was helping out the defense a lot. So he has experience working with the defense. There is a relationship there. And then he became the offensive coordinator. Granted, the non-play calling offensive coordinator, but he was the offensive coordinator. So there was a relationship between the offensive players and Brian Schottenheimer. So from that standpoint, there is a lot of continuity in this hire. And I would also say this, I don't think continuity is a bad thing. I know a lot of people are like, oh, familiarity, we don't want that with this team. And I get it. But this team did do some really good things under Mike McCarthy. They just have to be able to get over the hump in the offseason. And I think part of that isn't even in the control of Brian Schottenheimer, if I'm just going to be 100% honest with you. Did Mike McCarthy leave some bone on the meat, or leave some meat on the bone when it came to what this football team could do? Yeah, no doubt in my mind about that. But it just ultimately, like, even if you want to say, hey, the 2023 Cowboys, they could have got to the NFC Championship game. I'm going to be honest with you. If we would have went to the NFC Championship game and we would have lost, granted, great, we got to the NFC Championship game, but ultimately it does not mean anything because we did not win the Super Bowl. And that's kind of like my thing, right? Like, unless this front office takes team building seriously, doesn't matter who the coach is. This is not a Brian Schottenheimer. This is not a Mike McCarthy thing. This is not a Jason Garrett or whoever may be the coach. This isn't a Dak Prescott thing at quarterback. This isn't a Tony Romo thing at quarterback. This is the front office and their inability to do the things that the best teams in the league do. And, we can look at the quarterback and say he hasn't done enough in the postseason. Okay. Let's look at some of the quarterbacks who have won in the postseason recently. Jalen Hurts has won in the postseason. He is a mediocre quarterback. Brock Purdy won in the postseason. He is a mediocre quarterback. You want to know quarterbacks who were looked at as playoff chokers? Tony Romo, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Phillip Rivers. What do those guys have in common? They played for the Chargers and the Cowboys, teams that are not serious organizations. Not serious. So you mean to tell me that, Tony Romo, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, and Phillip Rivers are all playoff chokers, all guys who are really good quarterbacks. Is that the case, or do they play for organizations that don't care about winning football games? When we look at where this team has been recently, we can say, Dak Prescott choked in the playoffs. Okay, but I could also counter you and say they got to the divisional round in 2022 with a mediocre play caller who, he called a really good game yesterday. But prior to that, Philly fans wanted that guy out of town. He had the 31st ranked pass protection unit that year, and Noah Brown is his number 2 receiver. They had to bring in T.Y. Hilton in December, and they gave him meaningful reps because, they had nobody else. So that's the thing, right? We can look at this and say, Dak hasn't gotten here in the playoffs. But I could also come back to you and say, okay, but they got here, and getting there with the team that they assembled is an accomplishment. So if the Jones family does not take team building seriously this year, it's going to be a problem. And it does not matter who the quarterback is. It doesn't matter who the coach is, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. It's going to be the same damn thing. We went into the 2020. I'm sorry to be long-winded.
No, go for it, bro. You're speaking all. Doug, I'm letting you cook. Go ahead.
We went into, because I'm looking for this on my. Okay, I got it. We went into the 2023 offseason. We got Brandon Cooks and Stephon Gilmore. And we had people out there saying,
no more excuses for Dak. No more excuses. He has Brandon Cooks.
Brandon Cooks is an NFL receiver. That's all he is at this point in his career.
Not just Brandon Cooks, like 10-year vet Brandon Cooks.
Dude, that's and the biggest offseason acquisition, just from trade, free agency, whatever it may be, that this team has had offensively is Brandon Cooks. Defensively, Stephon Gilmore. You mean to tell me that is enough from an organizational standpoint to win big football games? It is not. Brandon Cooks was this team's best off-season acquisition in Dak Prescott's career. Meanwhile, you have the Ravens going and getting Derrick Henry. You have the Eagles getting Saquon Barkley this offseason. 2 years ago, they got A.J. Brown in the offseason. You have teams like granted, the Bills, Amari Cooper, not that good of a player anymore. But they had a need on their team, and they said, hey, we're going to go get Amari Cooper. Granted, in-season acquisition, just like Amari Cooper was an in-season acquisition for the Cowboys. But you get what I mean. When these teams have a problem and they need it fixed, they don't address it by relying on their 6th-round pick free agent or the 6th-round pick rookie.
Exactly.
They go and get serious football players because they want to do serious things as a team. And the way this team builds their team and the way they build out their depth is not serious.
Bro, you hit all the points, man. And this is where I feel bad for a guy like Brian Schottenheimer, because he is going to be the guy that has to take all of the hits for the Joneses and their inaction. And that's where, like, look, I'm happy he got the job. This is the first time he's been a head coach in the 20 years or 20 plus years, excuse me, that he's been coaching football. He started out as an assistant on the 97 Rams, and then he worked his way around the league. He got close to a head coaching job with the Jets, and I think even Buffalo came calling for him back in 2011, 2010. He declined those, and he kept bouncing around. He bounced in the college ranks too. He came back, and this is where we're at. And this is kind of this is great because first off, he's a first-time coach, so that means we don't got to worry about no coach has won it with two different teams whole thing, if you're a believer in that. But getting to your point on team building, because that's where I wanted to go with this. When you look at the 2025 Dallas Cowboys as they currently stand, this team, and I said this, I want to say in the first or second show we did, I said they are forced to spend money this year. I'm not saying it has to be like a ridiculous amount of money. They have to, because their roster, if they did nothing, if they don't do anything, it's going to be even worse next year. Like, I'm looking, and I think they're going to re-sign some guys right here. Here's what I'm seeing. You right now have no backup quarterback aside from Will Grier on a futures contract. You have no running backs outside of Deuce Vaughn and Hunter Lipke. You have no wide receivers outside of Tolbert, Lamb, and Mingo, if you want to go like that. Tight end, you have Ferguson and Luke Schoonmaker. Your entire offensive line is going to need a whole lot more depth. Your defensive line, you're going to look to lose Osa Odigizua unless you pay him. And also, by the way, DeMarcus Lawrence is out the door, which I'm not saying he's all that anymore, but I'm just saying, like, you're losing these dudes. And then you go to your linebacker situation. You're not going to have DeMarvin Overshown for 2025 for the most part. And you're most likely going to lose Eric Kendricks. Your defensive backs, again, you're losing guys there. And be like, oh, but space, it's okay. Like, they're going to figure. No, because this is the problem, is they're not being proactive. And I think that's where I don't want to hear this shit of, well, Dak Prescott signed on it. Bro, what the hell do you want him to do? Do you want him to be like, all right, bro, like, fuck this dude, I don't want him on my team? He's not going to do that, bro. Everybody knows Dak's a company guy. He's not going to try and rock the boat. Also, I want to be very clear. He wanted Mike McCarthy to stay. He wanted Mike McCarthy to stay. So if we're going off of that, then he didn't want Brian Schottenheimer. It's like a Stockholm syndrome. We're forced to go along with it. And I want to be very clear, too. If I'm not trying to sit here and say that Dak is perfect, I'm not trying to give him like any excuse. All I am saying is that we should not be giving the front office a pass for their bullshit. And I don't care what anybody tells me. If you're going to try and tell me that Dak Prescott's a playoff joker, okay, fine. I don't really care. But here's my thing. This front office elected to pay him. This front office elected to go get a new coach. This front office did jack shit to build on what they did. And this is where looking at what happened on Championship Sunday, I know I'm getting a bit long-winded, but also to kind of talk about this, because this is a huge point. On Championship Sunday, you saw the teams that advanced to the Super Bowl. They do things in common, which is they understand their situations and they build upon that. The Eagles went to the Super Bowl in 2022. Did they just sit there and go like, all right, guys, we're done. We're going to have to tear this thing down? No, they went through 2023. They had that collapse where they were 10-1. They had arguably a fantasy, they were on the route to do what they did the last year. They just fell apart because of emotional turmoil. And also their coordinators were not good. They replaced their coordinators. They didn't just sit back and like, all right, guys, we're going to just, no, they replaced their coordinators. They went out and got Saquon Barkley, to what you said, B. They got Saquon. Not only that, they added guys like Zach Bond. They went and they drafted a bunch of dudes that were productive players for them. And they didn't force these young dudes to step in and have to be like, guys, if you can't step in, we're screwed. And that's where I get mad, because it's that gets you to championships and possibly wins championships. The Cowboys have done none of that. So that's where, from this show, I want to be very clear. From this point moving forward, I'm defending Brian Schottenheimer. He is the coach. I want him to succeed. I'm not going to want him to not succeed just for my point to be correct. Dak Prescott, I want him to succeed. I'm not saying you're saying this to beat or anybody else in the chat is thinking what I'm saying. What I'm just getting at is from this point forward, you, the front office, need to back up this dude. That being Brian Schottenheimer. If you do not, damn shame. And, and I want to be very clear. I know Brian's dad passed away a couple years ago. I know he'd be damn proud to see his son be a head coach of a team, let alone the Cowboys. And I think that that's something that people forget in all this. But I'm going to end my soliloquy here that is where they're at. They need to get behind him. And if they don't get behind him, this shit don't work. And it hasn't worked.
And one real quick, by the way, that press conference is actually at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So
okay.
Yeah, that's going to be a little difficult because I got something to do at around 1 o'clock. But
honestly, it's probably going to be boring, and we're going to probably hear the same shit.
yeah. So we'll talk about it at another time. But hey, look, you hit on a lot of the points that I was built that some of the points that I was saying, and you added a different layer of context to it, which I greatly appreciate. And to turn this into let's stop, going at the Jones, even though they absolutely deserve it. And let's start talking about what this realistically could look like and how this can work. One thing I want to start off by saying is this, right? I want this team to get an identity. I don't care what that identity looks like. If it's, hey, we're going to build out our defensive line and we're going to be really physical on our defensive line, I'm not mad at it. If you want to build out your offensive line, be more physical there, not mad at it. If you want to run the football, go draft an offensive lineman and go get a badass running back, I'm not mad at it. But get an identity, something that you can go into Sundays and say, this is what we're going to build our game plan around. Is it running the football and building play action off it? Again, like if you do that, the need for like a badass number 2 receiver, I'm not saying it's not there. It absolutely is, but it's not as important as it would be if you were saying, hey, we're going to lean on the passing attack. Because if that's the case, you need like Minnesota Viking level receivers with, Jefferson, Addison, and Naylor, and Hawkinson, and guys like that. But if you say, hey, we're going to run the ball and build play action off that, and that's what we're going to build our offense off of, it's not like Detroit has elite receivers all around the field. Jamison Williams is a very good player. Amon-Ra St. Brown's a very good slot receiver. And, they kind of build it like that. Sam Laporta. But, their quarterback played very well this year because of the fact that they had a legitimate structure to their offense and they didn't really ask their quarterback to do much. I don't believe you're at that liberty with Dak Prescott. I think that you can build a really good structure of an offense with Dak, and when needed, he can make plays out of structure. I think that's the difference between a guy like Dak and Jared Goff, in my personal opinion. But, that's the thing. Get an identity, get that thing where you're like, we're going to win because of this. And let's rock out, because right now, what is this team? What can you say this team does very well? You could say their passing attack. I disagree with that because they don't have the receivers for that. They don't have the offensive line for that either when it comes to holding up and pass protection. They can't do that because, when Jalen Tolbert is your number 2 receiver, I'm sorry, you're going to struggle. You're just going to, when we're ranking number 2 receivers, where is he on that list? Maybe 30, 29, somewhere around that area. Just not good enough. It's not good enough. And they got to do something here. And, I'm sure we'll talk about the draft. Whatever way you want to stack this thing where you're like, hey, we'll draft the running back in round 1 and we'll go with a Trey Harris, somebody like that in the second round from Ole Miss. Or if you want to draft a receiver in round 1 and we can go draft one of the running backs in round 2, or if you want to draft an offensive lineman, then draft a running back, whatever it may be, just get an identity and stick to that damn identity and win games because of your identity. And then in following off seasons, continue to build out the rest of your team. That's the way I look at that.
And, I want to hone in on that. That is a fantastic point. this Cowboys team, bro, we've said it for years. This team hasn't had an identity. Like when Kellen Moore was the OC here, it was the what the hell are we doing offense, the no identity offense. It was like either one day we're very pass heavy or one day we're very run heavy. It was so inconsistent, right? But also not even just offensively, defensively, it was like, what are we, right? Are we a team now under Dan Quinn? We were a team that gets a lot of turnovers, but we just couldn't get crucial stops. Okay, that's fine. But this is where I look at it, right? Like Marty Ball. If you're an NFL fan, you know what the hell I'm talking about. Marty Schottenheimer, this was his identity. Run, pass, run, just run the ball and be hard-nosed when it comes to the defense. That has always been the build of Marty's teams, and he was wildly successful even in the early 2000s. Now, people will be like, that's an outdated philosophy. Now, my thing is that we've seen just recently the Eagles, you can look at the Chiefs from the 2023 season. You can go to the 2022 season. You can also point to the Eagles and the Chiefs as well. Teams that run the ball well and stop the run win championships. Point blank, period.
It's not that hard.
It's not that difficult, but the problem is that the Cowboys don't want to lean into that, right? They want to act like they're so cheap they can't. So here's the thing, right? The Cowboys, what did we know them in the late Romo era and the early Dak era? They ran the ball a lot, but their defense wasn't good, right? They ran the ball a lot because they didn't want their defense to be tired. Well, your defense is way more talented than it is those years. And I think this is where I wouldn't be shocked if they took another offensive lineman in round one. They could be sitting there and be like, yo, we could get a badass lineman. And whether you agree with it or not, I don't want them to just take an offensive lineman in the first round just for the sake of taking an offensive lineman. They need to do better at getting value guys. Like looking at, I believe it is the Bills. The Bills had no guy on that offensive line that was a first round pick. And they were still doing great, right? I think for the Cowboys, granted they got young guys, right? I think that you're fine. I think really the only position you need to change is probably right tackle because Terrence Steele has been struggling. But he played better towards the tail end of the season, so I'm not sure if they're going to just let him go, right? But that's what I want to see. Just like I'm a Penn State guy. Everybody knows that. What do they know to do? Play hard-nosed defense and run the goddamn ball. I don't have a problem if that's the Cowboys' philosophy. I just want them to do it efficiently and effectively. Like, don't run the ball just because you want to run the ball. Like, and we criticized that during the season. They ran the ball on first down. Like when we talked about how McCarthy would run the ball on first down, it's because there was no schematic difference. It was just halfback dive up the middle, right to the left hash. That's every fucking time that I would watch him run on first down. I would hope that Brian Schottenheimer would be more dynamic with that. That's what we've been called for, Chris, is a more dynamic offense. Like, think about it, right? People talk about like, oh, well, Rico Dowdle would do fantastic behind the Eagles O-line. Yeah, sure. I'm not discrediting that. I mean, he did great given our situation. But we need a guy that is like a Jahmyr Gibbs, a Saquon Barkley, someone that can give juice to this offense. And that is the thing. Like, we don't want 25-yard games. We want 60-plus yard rushing touchdowns. We want that dynamic back here. And again, I'm a big pass on first down guy. That's just what statistics show you. But I want to be very clear, too. If the Cowboys want this to be 90s football or what is Cowboys football, bro, Cowboys football has been, for the most part, run the fucking ball. And unfortunately, they can't play defense because that's that's what we've seen before. But that's what I want. Like, dude, just give me, like, if he came out today, and I'm sorry to go on and on, but this is a huge point. They just need to figure out what the hell they want to do. If Brian Schottenheimer said, I want to do what my dad did, run the ball, play hard-nosed defense, I'm not complaining because at least I know this is what we wanted to do. And so I wanted to shift points because I know this was another thing I wanted to talk about and kind of go to your thoughts on this. How should the Cowboys, like we talk about free agency upcoming, right? And how should they build this team around Brian Schottenheimer? If that is the philosophy you want to go with, Chris, running the football, playing hard-nosed defense, what do you think they need? Like, what at this point in time do you think they need to do in this offseason to consider it a successful offseason?
You need to find an NFL starting guard. NFL starting, not Nathan Thomas, who I think could be a good player. But hey, look, If we see it from him, we see it. Got to get an NFL starting guard to replace Zach Martin. I think you got to get a good offensive line coach to get more out of the offensive linemen that you have on this football team. You know, where this team is going to improve this year is being able to, if they can, re-sign their own guys. You know, I would like to get a bigger defensive tackle than Oso Digizua, my personal opinion. I just think he's too small. And he's more of a Dan Quinn guy. So, hey, go have fun with the Commanders. But I mean, look, I want a bigger defensive line. I want to be able to bully people on the offensive line. I just want this team to go in there with NFL starting caliber players at these positions of need. I want them to go sign a wide receiver. I want them to go, if they want to keep Rico Dowdle, I'm cool with keeping Rico Dowdle. But go get NFL starters to play in these positions so that, hey, when things come around, you know, we're not looking at this and saying, we don't have NFL football players at these positions. And that way you can go in the draft and, hey, let's just say you sign a guard, but then you draft Kelvin Banks from Texas. Well, great. You now have depth at that position. You know, that's really where I'm going with this. And I'm just going to keep hammering this home. Get an identity, because right now this team has no identity. And I think it could potentially hurt them, next season if they just go in there and they're like, we're not sure what we do well. Find something that you do well and build your whatever side of the ball it is, offense, defense, around that.
Yeah, exactly. And like I'm right now pulling up the free agency list, and this is the thing is the Cowboys, and I want to be, for everybody watching, I want to be very clear. Me and Chris are not, and Chris, you know, we're all on the same wavelength here. You said it. We just need starting caliber players. We don't need all pros. We don't need pro bowlers. We don't need any of that. The only thing is you can't sell us on backups. And like, I don't have a problem if you sign a backup. Like, that's not a problem. But you have so much work you have to do. Like, I'm just going to look at the running back room for the upcoming offseason, right? You have guys like, let's see, Aaron Jones. You mentioned Rico Dowdle, of course. Aaron Jones, Rico Dowdle, Najee Harris, A.J. Dillon, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams.
It's a bad class.
It's pretty top heavy, but like if you're talking about like the age of these guys and what you're looking to do, it's not a whole lot. But here's the thing. I'm just saying, hypothetically, if the Cowboys were to go out there and let's just say they signed Rico back, I don't know, they sign another dude. They have Malik Davis on a futures contract, but like I'm just saying, you need at least 2 running backs. Bring Rico back. Go sign another dude, which I'm looking at this list. Like you can, honestly, I'm just going through, like you could sign a guy like Samaje P. Ryan or Alexander Madison or Javonte Williams, and I'd be happy with that.
So can I actually sell you on something?
Sure.
So you know how over the past few years, Georgia won championships and the Eagles took a lot of players from Georgia.
Yeah.
And I might be saying this because I'm an Ohio State fan. It would not upset me whatsoever if they decided in the first round, draft Emeka Egbuka, second round, draft Travion Henderson, and third round, draft Quinshon Judkins.
Oh, I wouldn't be upset with that. No, I want to be upset with that by one.
Here's the thing, right? You can kind of build your offense kind of like how they did at Ohio State, where like you have your difference-making receiver, how Ohio State had Jeremiah Smith. You have CeeDee Lamb, and you have those running backs that can perfectly complement each other. You have proof that they perfectly complement each other. And if the way we're going with this offseason is, hey, we're going to run the football and build play action off that, man, I would absolutely love that. I think that would be a great idea. Like, I get it. Yeah, there are other needs on this team, but hey, you just got to deal with it. When every team's going to have needs going into the season, and I get it. It's not fun having to work around those needs, but at that point, you can say, hey, we can run the crap out of the football, and we have another receiver to complement CeeDee Lamb, and we have legitimate offensive pieces on this team.
And I want to add to that because this is the thing is like when we look at Kyle Shanahan, I'm not trying to compare Brian Schottenheimer to Kyle Shanahan. I'm just talking about like the philosophy. We know the 49ers love to run the football, and the way that they do it in their run concepts is something that I've wanted the Cowboys to do for quite some time. And I think that if you give him the personnel, then we can cook with something possibly. But that's where it's like when you look at how they're constructed, or any of these teams are constructed, they have a ton of weapons. And they're not having to like pigeonhole themselves in what they can do. Like I'm looking at the wide receiver class, right? Like, bro, they don't need to sign a whole lot. Honestly, to your point, I would still draft a receiver and sign one, like maybe to a 1 to 2 year deal. Like I really wanted the Cowboys to go after Mike Williams from the Chargers, or I think he went to the Jets. I'm sorry. He went to the Jets. He was on the trade block. I really wanted the Cowboys to go after him because I like his measurables. I think that he would be a complimentary wide receiver too. Honestly, he'd be the wide receiver too automatically here in Dallas. But they don't need a whole lot. Like they just need to go get one receiver in free agency. And it can't be a wide receiver 4. Like if you go out, like people talk about Stephon Diggs. I don't want Stephon Diggs. But here's the sad thing. If you do add a Stephon Diggs, he would instantly be your wide receiver 2, just given the situation with where you're at. Or people talk.
It's the same way with Brandon Cooks, where I think our mindset with the Brandon Cooks thing was he's not a superstar, but he's much better than what we had. And that's where, like, here's the thing. If you're telling me that game 1 of next season, our receiver core is CD, Stephon Diggs, and Brandon Cooks, because I'd be all for bringing back Brandon Cooks because I believe in bringing back veterans. Like, you look at the Washington Commanders, they had at their core, they're a young football team with Jane Daniels. They got Mike Sanistro's a really good player. Like they have a core of players where you're like, all right, there's some young players and people in their prime that are kind of starting to exit their prime. But you know what I'm saying? Like, but then you have your veterans like Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner, guys who have been there before, Austin Eckler. So I'm cool with having veteran leadership in this locker room. I do worry about Stephon Diggs when it comes to, the spotlight is very bright in Dallas, and things get blown out of proportion. And Stephon Diggs is a very passionate receiver, and I worry about that stuff. So I think I'd be good on Stephon Diggs, but at least an NFL receiver. I mean, it's not great, but what are you gonna do?
Right. Here's what I would do. This is what I would do. If I had the opportunity, I would trade down. Just follow me here.
Yeah.
If the board fell a certain way and I was the GM, I would trade down, try to get like a 3rd and maybe another pick next year. Let me call Pittsburgh and see what they want for George Pickens. I think he would fit. He would fit amazing here. And here's the thing is that people, but he's the best. I don't give a shit. We need players. And if they're not going to handle him, if they're not going to deal with his bullshit, listen, man, to me, that's always been a Mike Tomlin problem. He hasn't been able to handle the characters that come through his locker room. That has been a Mike Tomlin staple for years now. And the thing is like, oh, but Space, we got to pay for that. Bro, you're going to have to pay for that shit regardless. Like, look at what happened with the Eagles. You had to pay for A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and then those are your 1 and 2, and then you just cycle through 3 through 6. I've wanted the Cowboys to do that. I thought you had that with Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, right? But they're like, oh, well, Amari, we don't. That's the part that irks me. And I want to get this one point out. If the Cowboys want to sit here and act like they can't build because, at the end of the day, we only have so much pie to go around because we're paying Dak Prescott $89 million. Yeah, $89 million against the cap. Bullshit, bro. Because where I get mad is that this team can open up $100 million in cap space. They want to act like, we got to clear the books. Bitch, we don't got to clear shit. What we got to do is we got to go for a championship. And here's the thing. These next 4 years, swipe the credit card. If it doesn't work, you want to know what you can do? Let's just say in 3 years, Dak Prescott starts to regress. You have a lot of cap, if you want to call it that, which you can get out of it pretty quickly. Guess what? the Cowboys can go cheap with a rookie quarterback then. That's the thing that bothers me so much, is that they act like they can't do things, but they can. And if we're not going to be willing to push, like we keep hearing this, we got to save up so we have the opportunity to do something. Oh, we got to save up to do something later. They say that so many times. When is that time going to come? You can't tell me that 2023 was that time, bro. 2023 is the standard for what we need to see from teams, right? Is you're going to add players. That's the first time in my lifetime watching the Cowboys that they added starting quality players in an offseason as early as they did. And they did it fantastic, right? But they want to call that all in. If you call that all in, bro, this team's cooked, which we know it's been cooked. But not to go on and on and on. I just don't want us as fans and those that are watching, I don't want you to think that the Cowboys can't do things. I don't want you to get twisted into thinking that it's Dak Prescott's fault we can't contend, that it's Brian Schottenheimer's fault we can't contend. No, it is the front office's fault exclusively, because they could have hit the reset button this year if they wanted to. They didn't. They're like, you know what? We're going to run this shit back, but we're going to do a different coach, and maybe this will work out. But that's where I just get upset with this, man. Like,
so I have a question for you.
Sure.
Would you be okay with, because I'm looking up the Cowboys salary cap space in 2020. So in 2025 this year, they're going to go into the offseason with negative $973 million, or no, not 973,000 in cap space, according to Spotrac. Then you're going to have in 2026 $103 million of cap space. And bro, when you look at the free agency class of 2026, you have TJ Watt, Daniil Hunter, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Trey Hendrickson, Mike Evans, Joey Bosa, Jonathan Allen, Christian Kirk, Travis Kelce, Grady Jarrett, Joel Bitonio, Joe Thuney, Zach Allen, Courtland Sutton, George Kittle, Tyler Lockett, Dallas Goedert, Wyatt Teller, Darius Slay, Mark Evans, Marcus Williams, Cameron Jordan, Evan Ingram, David Njoku, let me see, David Onyemata, Zadarius Smith, Jacoby Myers, DJ Reader, Andrew Van Ginkel, Danico Autry, Jadeveon Clowney.
But it's a great class. I know that for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, so
CJ Mosley, Tyler Higbee, let's see, Kyle Pitts, maybe, Isaac Sumalo. Bro, holy cow. Like, if they go into that offseason with that much cap space, I mean, it just, you keep going down the list. You have Alex Anzalone, Quincy Williams. I mean, dude, it's is
your question, so I'm going to imagine your question is, for me, is should we go light this year, save up money, and try to go after the 2026 season? Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah.
Am I? No, I have no problem with it. Like, I just need a vision, right? That's me. Like, to me, I'm just like, we got to go for this shit now. But the problem is with how your roster is constructed, it's going to take 2 years. Like, when I say 2 years, I'm talking about, like, you had this first year kind of clearing things out. Then you got this next year coming up. So then you can get to a 2026 where you can do what you want to do. But we got to remember, I'm looking at our free agency list, right? The Cowboys got to pay Micah Parsons. You're going to have Tyler Smith going on his 5th-year option. You're going to have to pay him. Then I'm just looking, Jake Ferguson. I don't have a problem if you move off of Jake Ferguson, because typically with tight ends, they operate the same like running backs. You don't pay these guys elite money unless they are good, or if the contract's fine. Like, if we were paying Jake Ferguson, let's say $10 million a year, which that's insane. That's just the going price for starting caliber dudes. If it was like
there is a steal.
Right. If it's the same as the Dalton Schultz contract, I have no problem with that. But that's the thing, though, is right now I wouldn't say he's worthy of a contract yet. But looking at the 2026 year, you don't have a whole lot of dudes you got to pay. It's just Micah, Tyler Smith, maybe Jake Ferguson, and that's it. And Deron Bland.
if that means moving,
But that's
on
easy.
You got to move
Yeah,
on from.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, you can make that move. You can move off of Diggs and re-sign him. That's why it's not hard. And I don't want the Cowboys to think that they can't sign these dudes. And I forgot Deron Bland was like, because again, it's just with how young he is and how long. But to your point, I have no problem if they want to do that. But we know they won't do that. What you have to do this year, if they want to structure this right, to go after 2026, you need to go get some starting quality. Like, you don't need a whole lot. Maybe like a guard or two, like a starting quality guard, maybe a backup guard, starting quality wide receiver, a couple dudes in the defense, draft your guys. You're going to have to go through another year of missing the playoffs or making the playoffs but not going far. And then in 2026, that's when you have to strike when the iron's hot. Because to me, like, we're going to go through, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. Just hear me out on this. Right now, you're going through the 2011 through 2013 Cowboys. They're retooling the roster, so then they're going to try and go on one final run with Dak sometime down the road. The question is when does that happen? And I think that's the scary part, is they're going to stretch this out. But I think also, you don't need to hold on to everybody. If you want to trade Trevon Diggs, people could call me out like, oh, we shouldn't touch. Bro, everybody on this roster, with the exception of, let's say, Dak, CD, Micah, and Tyler Smith, yeah, those four are untouchable. Maybe Deron Bland too. Those are untouchable. Everybody else can go. Like, if you want to go trade and get draft capital or do whatever, you got to do that. But this is where I get sad and upset. The team doesn't think like that, right? People talk about we need to move on from Dak Prescott. The Cowboys aren't going to pull a Eagles where they're going to trade like how they traded Carson Wentz to the fucking Colts for a second-round pick, which would have turned into a first. They ain't going to do that. They're not. They don't have the smarts to do that.
Carson Wentz wanted out of Philly. Really. Dak doesn't want out of Dallas. So
yeah, and that's that. But this is where I kind of get into my next point. Is even if you get the next guy, right? Like, even if we knew, like, let's say we drafted Jalen Hurts in 2020 and Dak wanted out after his contract, just hypothetically, and Jalen Hurts turned out to be what he is in Philly, where he's at here, and you still got to pay him. Even if you did all the success, you still got to pay him, right? Even if you don't win, right? And that's the thing, is this is why I don't like many Cowboys fans, is they think that it's easy to just move on, go get another dude, and then just you forget you're going to have to pay the other guy. And by the way, think about it this, and I hate to keep dominating the airwaves here, but like, this is, a big focal point here. How many quarterbacks in the entire National Football League you could say can win by themselves? Probably less than what you can count. Like, I would say maybe 4 or 5.
And to be honest with you, when we talk about winning, what are we talking about? We're just talking about like winning regular season games and maybe a playoff game or two. Like, let's keep it real here. The Chiefs are a very good football team. They may not have that many pieces on offense, but they have a great play caller. And on the defensive side of the ball, they have the best defensive coordinator in football with a loaded defense. He's not winning with nothing on his team. He's winning with not much on his offense. And that is fair to say. Josh Allen got to the AFC Championship game. He is a superhuman. And even he can't get his team to the Super Bowl and win. Lamar Jackson, it's gotten one conference championship, and he's one of these superhuman guys. You need a football team around you. Matt Stafford didn't do anything until he got to LA. And Matt Stafford is an incredible quarterback. He is an awesome player. And he wasn't able to do anything until he had an actual team around him. And that's just where this comes back to. But do you want to do a quick mock draft here? Let's have some fun.
Let's do a quick mock draft, and then we're going to close this thing because I want to talk a bit about the Super Bowl a little bit, like initial thoughts, and then we'll close this thing out. Because I think now that we know who the coach is, we could do mock drafts now. That's why I was waiting. So, all right, bro, let's go ahead and do this. So, is this just gonna?
I'm gonna do this like pretty slow, just so we can go through. It doesn't have to be quick. We can really think this thing out. So going into this, guys that I think off chance. So let's run through our board here a little bit. off chance guys that could potentially be there. Off chance guys. To me, I'm stacking it. McMillan from Arizona, Mason Graham from Michigan, and trying to think of other guys. And maybe there's two guys. We'll stack them like that. Because I think the rest of these guys, Travis Hunter, he's not going to make it. There's no chance. Same with Abdul Carter. But two guys that I think could possibly get to 12 that I don't think they will. But again, you never know with the draft. McMillan and Mason Graham, those are our first.
And I think as we kind of wait as we talk, I think Will Campbell is also another name that you want to keep an eye out on. I would say
I'm not a big fan of Will Campbell, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I would prefer Banks, but I'm just saying, like in terms of the guys that you would think wouldn't be there, I wouldn't be shocked.
Will Campbell could be a guy. So, all right, Cam Ward off the board at 1. To the Titans, we have Shedeur Sanders at 2. We have Travis Hunter at 3. We have McMillan at 4, so that's one of our guys. We have Abdul Carter at 5. We have Malachi Starks at 6. Okay, we're at 7 here. Mason Graham isn't off the board. Is there any consideration here and maybe trading up? Or is it going to be too rich?
I think it's going to be too. I can look at the trade value chart really quickly just to make it real.
Okay. Because right now we have with this board we have Cam Ward, Shedeur, we have Hunter, McMillan, Abdul Carter, Malachi Starks. Once we start getting in this 7, because here's the thing: do I love Mason Graham so much more than I love Kelvin Banks? I don't. So those are two guys that are on the board here that I think are going to be legitimate candidates here.
Let me look. So we're talking about moving up from 7 to 12.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me bear with me for 1 second. So I would say that this wouldn't be difficult. I would say that right now there's what's the word I'm looking for? There's a 200-point total that we need to make up, and it's just moving up 7 spots. This is where if you had a 4th-round pick, this would kind of come in handy. But I think what you can do, just realistically,
I'd say we wait till 9 if we're going to trade up.
Because you could give up a 5th, and it would make sense.
Yeah, the Jets already have defensive linemen, so I don't know if they're going to go there. Same thing with I think Mason Graham becomes a player.
But no, here's the thing. I think Mason Graham goes at 8. That's my worry. I think he's going to go. Yeah. So here's what we'll do. I think that if we're both playing GM here, my thing is that right now, as of how this team's roster is constructed, it's got a lot of needs. So you're going to need a lot of picks, right?
Yeah.
So here's what I will say. If we're going through the trade calculator chart, we could probably, and knowing that we're going to have to give up more than what we want, I'm thinking we're probably going to have to give up a 5th this year and maybe a 4th next year. You might think that's crazy, but dude, some of these teams ask for a lot.
Yeah. Do you think we should?
Let's try it. Hey, let's try it. So let's do 7 and 12. We'll swap picks.
7 and 12. Okay.
And then we'll offer a 4th-round pick in 2026.
4th-round pick in 2026 has a 36% chance of being.
Well, let's just see. If they say no, then we move. All right. So we're just going to move. We're going to just see what happens here. Again, I'm just going off of the trade value chart.
They took Mason Graham.
Yeah, I figured, but realistically, they would just be like, what are you coming up for? We're coming up for a defensive player. They're thinking it's Mason Graham. All right, yeah, we're going to take him. That's what I would think they would.
Okay, sweet. So we got 8 here. I don't think they're going to take Banks. That's the next guy I'd be looking for. I think they're probably going to take Will Johnson here. So I'm good with letting this.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Now, if we want Banks, and they did take Will Johnson, if we want Banks, we're probably going to have to get above these two. So let's see. Let's trade up.
Yeah.
The Saints need a wide receiver, right? This is where I
Mhm.
think if you want Banks, this is a legitimate trade up scenario here because you're going to be the Saints are probably going to want to take a wide receiver or a defensive lineman. Like I'm looking at their needs right now. And these next two teams, if you're going to want to get Kelvin Banks, I think you're going to have to get ahead of the Bears and the 49ers. So,
Yeah, and I think this shouldn't take too much. Let's see, 9-12,
9 and 12. Okay.
and then give up. I'm gonna say we give up 172.
172. Okay. Offer the trade. Okay. Trade. Mark.
We could try. Honestly, let's throw in a 7th round pick in 26.
7th round pick in 26. Okay. Offer the trade. Okay. We're here. Wow.
All right, cool.
Kelvin Banks is the 15th ranked player. That's a complete understatement.
So I would say also for those that are like a Genti fan, if you want to, because to me Chicago is going to be the pick, but they have DeAndre Swift. But again, like I think that there's legitimate threat there for them to add him. But that's where it's at. So what do we think? We want to go after Calvin Banks?
Kelvin Banks, that's the pick here.
Let's do that. Let's give Marty Ball a guy that's going to move and take over Zach Martin's position. And now, and all we had to do was give up one of our. Oh yeah, dude, we would give up a 5th round pick, a 5th and 7th, just to get Kelvin Banks, a guy that's going to be a 10-year player at guard. Like that's fantastic.
I feel great. I feel great about that pick. Sweet. So I'm gonna turbo.
We're gonna just speed up.
Yeah,
and we're not interested in trading back up into the right.
And I'm not interested in trading in the 2nd round. I think I want to stay because I like the depth of this draft in the 2nd round. So I'm gonna stay here at
All right, let's see who we got. So
TJ Sanders, I'm not interested.
Xavier Watts, I would be interested in long term, but I just think with how this team's constructed, you don't have time
for a safety. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Omar Norman Lott, I haven't watched him, but I heard a lot of good things about him. Same thing with Savion Williams. Xavier Restrepo, I really, really like him. My thing is with Xavier Restrepo is he is a slot receiver. And he's not like a big time burner. He's small and he isn't necessarily fast. So here I'm looking at some guys, like I'm looking down the board. I don't know in what world they have TJ Sanders over a guy like Jack Beach, but to me, I'm looking at that this pick to me comes down between Caleb Johnson and Jack Beach.
Could we see the receiver room and let's see who's available receiver wise?
I'm not going to take Jalen Walker there because there's no way he's getting.
I mean, we say that. So let's look at the running backs and the wide receivers. All right, cool. Let's just take a look. Because to me, I'm shocked to have Scadaboo that high, honestly.
Yeah, nah, I'm not interested in Scadaboo. You have Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins.
Give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
All right, I got you. So, all right, I'll run this down while he's here. Right now, when you look at the running backs, you have Cam Scadaboo, Dylan Sampson, Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, Devin Neal. To me, if I'm picking here, I'm taking Caleb Johnson just because I think that he has the chance to be a really good running back. But when we just look at the overall picture, receiver wise, I talked about Xavier Restrepo. Savion Williams is a guy who, he's Debo Samuel-esque, but you can do a lot of things with Savion Williams when it comes to a traits perspective. I mean, he's 6'5", 220 pounds. You're not going to find receivers like that everywhere. He checks off every physical trait.
Let me ask you this. Could we take a look to see what trades are available? Just to see. I'm not saying we got to.
We got 50 here from Seattle.
So Seattle's interested in trading up with us?
Yeah. So they got 50.
So they're probably coming up for one of the running backs or the wide receivers, probably. But that's the thing. But let me ask you this: I don't
think they're coming up for a running back because they already have. Walker from the kid that went to Michigan State.
Gotcha.
And they have who's that kid from UCLA? Zach Charbonnet.
Zach
So,
Charbonnet. Yeah. All right. So let's just see 50 and 44. I want to see if we can get like a fifth back or something because we ain't getting a fourth. Could we get like 173 maybe? Let's see. Could we and let's see if we could get a seventh back in 2020. Like let's see. See if we could get a sixth in 2026.
let's see. All right, let's offer that. All right, boom.
Perfect. So we recoup. We get back the draft capital we used to go get Kelvin Banks, but we actually did better because we gave up the seventh and instead we got a sixth back. So I think that's a pretty good trade if I say so myself.
I like the trade as well. I think you're really going to like some of the players that are going to be on the board at 50 here, and you're able to get another 5th round pick. And if we want to, we can package some of these 5th round picks and try and get back into the 4th round here. So
yeah,
I'm absolutely on board with this. So
yep, get our ammunition back. Let's just see. Okay,
and boom. And you want to know what? I like this board a lot. Again, Jalen Walker is not going to be there, but man, look, to me, I don't think there's much discussion here.
I think Caleb Johnson's the pick.
Brian Johnson's going to win, or I'm sorry, Brian Schottenheimer is going to win the football. So we're in agreement. Caleb Johnson's
yes, that's a perfect pick. You move down, you get your draft capital back, and now you got your guard on your Zach Martin replacement, and now you add a dude into the room to help bolster this running back room. So far, I think this is a fantastic draft so far. So now we get into round 3. This is where the fun really begins.
Jalen Royals is a guy that a lot of people are high on. I have yet to watch him, but there's going to be players that we haven't watched in this draft. I've heard a lot of good things about him. You have Isaiah Bond here. Derek Harmon is a defensive lineman. Trey Harris in the. You want to know what? I don't know if he'll be here. So I'm not interested in taking a player that's probably not going to be here.
Well, you never know, dude. That's why these are mock drafts. Exactly. We didn't know CeeDee Lamb was going to be at 17. So that's why I say you kind of have to go with how the board falls because each of these are different.
Yeah. So
if it were me, I would take Trey Harris just because of the fact that you get another wide receiver. Like, go to his measurables really quickly because there was a point I wanted to.
This guy checks the box with measurables.
Yeah, 6'3", 210. Like, dude, that's a Cowboys wide. Like, this is the thing: is the Cowboys love wide receivers that are 6 foot higher and I think above 200 pounds usually. So, to me, I would think that unless we want to trade down again, I think that Trey Harris is the pick. Now there is the situation where Isaiah Bond, do you go get a guy that's speedy? I would love to have that, but the problem is like,
Here's the thing though, and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go for it, bro.
We could get to 85 with Pittsburgh, and like I'm looking at this board. I mean, if Pittsburgh's trading up, I would assume they're trading up for Milrow. But yeah, I mean, Royals is a guy that I'd be interested in.
Do you want to try and trade down again? You want to just try?
Yeah, because I like Gunnar Helm. I wouldn't be upset with that pick. Let's see. Isaiah Bond, I'm not a big fan of his, but
me either.
Thomas, I've heard some really good things about him. Derek Harmon.
I like Tez Johnson. I like Tez Johnson out of Oregon, but I think that compared to who else was on the board.
Hey, here's the thing, right? We could be in a situation if we trade back to 85. Donovan Jackson to me is a real player in this thing. I mean, he's a very good player, and I think if you double down on the offensive line, you're going to be looking at. Hey, we can play Kelvin Banks at left tackle. That's not out of the question. We can move Donovan Jackson into right guard. You can move on from Terrence Steele, and your starting 5 is Banks, Tyler Smith, BB, Donovan Jackson, and Tyler Guyton.
And just as a heads up, we do have breaking news that Matt Eberflus is on his way to Dallas to interview for the defensive coordinator position, and if all goes well, he will be the next defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, which I have no problem with Eberflus coming back. I think he's a fantastic defensive coordinator. It's just as a head coach and a leader of guys in that, he just wasn't a fit. But I think that's a great fit. And honestly, he should have been the DC in Dallas long ago, but glad to see him coming back. So Pittsburgh. So I would imagine Pittsburgh's probably coming up for Milroe, which I think, just as a heads up, there are rumors that they might take him in round 1 this year. But let's just say he falls. So 85, we're at 76.
I'm gonna look to hold them up. I'm gonna look to hold them.
Can we see if we can get their 4th? Do you think we can get their 4th out of this?
Yeah. The only here's the only problem that I could see us running into is this. Right? They need a quarterback, but they're going to be trading up because there's going to be teams that could potentially be interested in trading up for that quarterback as well. That's what. When you look at these next few picks, you have the Patriots, the Cardinals. Those 2 teams, I don't believe need quarterback, or definitely the Patriots. I don't think the Cardinals need a quarterback. Washington, they definitely don't need one. Same thing with Cincinnati. Seattle's interesting. So is Tampa Bay, but the Broncos, I'm looking to hold them up because it's a quarterback that they're coming.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's probably what, like, if they're calling, we'd be like, hey, are you looking at Milroe? Or they might not say that, but they'd be like, are you taking an offensive player? Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah. So let's see, 85 and 76. Let's do.
I'm gonna get very aggressive. I'm gonna look for.
Let's do it. 121. Let's do a 7th. Yeah, let's do a 7th in 2026.
Boom.
Let's do it. Offer it. Boom.
There we go. Yeah.
So now we get our 4th round pick. We get a 4th round pick back. So now we don't have to wait as long. We also get so now we've replenished also some of the draft picks in 26, because now we're coming away with not only having a 6th rounder, but also a 7th rounder before even comp picks start getting formulated. But that's great. Now we're getting more ammunition for this. But also, if we want to trade up in round 4 for a guy that we really like, we can do that.
Yeah, and we now have a 4th round pick.
Yeah.
Boom.
So let's.
They took Milroe, by the way.
So we were pretty spot on with what they were going to do. So
and I love this board because the 2 guys I'm talking about here is Derek Harmon and Trey Harris. Those are the 2 guys I'm talking about. So
yeah,
when we talked about identity, right? To me, if we want to build an identity, build that offensive side of the ball, I'm pounding the table here for Trey Harris. I get it, the defensive line. It's a little bit of a question mark here, but I want to make sure that this offense can keep up with the teams that you're going to be going up against. And I think we're going to walk into the 2025 season, if I'm the general manager, and I'm going to say, hey, we're going to win with our offense and we'll worry about the defense at another time.
I always say draft your offense, pay for your defense. And I think let's go with Trey Harris here. Let's get Dak another receiver to play with and a guy that can pair along CeeDee Lamb for the next couple of years.
And, when it comes to Tej Johnson, right? Here's the thing when it comes to Tej Johnson, a little bit of a smaller receiver, 5'10", 165. I'm not interested in that. Get me an X receiver, and I'm going to roll with Trey. We're going to roll with Trey Harris here as the pick. Now, I don't believe Derek Harmon got off the board. So we have a 4th round pick.
Do we want to try and trade up?
Yeah, I'm seriously thinking about trading up here.
Okay, so let's do this. So let's do pick 94. We're at 121, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to have to give up a decent amount. Let's just see. So I'm thinking we can give up – we had to give up one of our 5th this year. So let's see. Could we give up the 5th that Seattle gave us, 173?
Trade will not be accepted.
It is a 3rd round pick, so we're gonna have to get. So, do we want to? Yeah, do we want to try and wait till round 4 to make a trade on that? Because we only, I don't think they're gonna give up a 3 like that unless we're giving up like a 4th next year.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's gonna be. I think that's gonna be real.
So let's resume until we get to round 4. We'll see if he makes it. If he makes it, then we'll make a trade. Let's go for it. No. Yeah, that's what I figured, but that's okay.
That's all right. I like some of these later round defensive tackles.
And honestly, at that point, like, he would be the only dude I'd be willing to trade up for if that's how the board fell. But here we go. So now we have our 4th round pick that we acquired with the trade down in the 3rd round so they could go get their quarterback. Now, if I'm kind of looking at how this board. This is.
I don't love this board.
I'm thinking of trading down again, but because so for me, can we scroll? Taj Brooks is a guy I want to bring in here. I want to double down on running back this year, but when we get here's the thing: is when you get past round 4, it's just a crapshoot. I don't care who you take; it could be best player available, and I think it'd be fine. But who's offering us a trade? Jacksonville.
Jacksonville for 124. Let's look at the players that they might be coming up for. Jacksonville needs a center, guard, defensive interior. And okay, so the guard, I would assume they'd be coming up for Connor Colby or Chase Blunt. Because that's what I assume they'd be coming up for. Here's my thing. Like I think I have a 3rd round grade on CJ West, but he's ranked as 167.
Where was it? I saw a Penn State guy. Was that Kobe King? Yeah, I like Kobe. I think that he would be a fine addition here in the 4th round. But to me, I would probably trade down. And
Jamal Turner.
Yeah. I mean, I would honestly I don't have a problem taking Martinez out of Miami. I think he'd be also fantastic to pair alongside Johnson out of Iowa. But
Here's my thing. What do we think about the tight end? What do we think about the tight end room? We have Jake on his.
What about? There's a dude from I forget his name. He's out of Syracuse. I've been a big fan of him since he's been there. I'm just seeing if he's still on the board. Scroll down. He might have. Yes, I really like Addison. I think that he would be great here. So I'm kind of but we could probably get him later. So I'm okay with him. I think that he's, from what I've seen a little bit of, I'm not super impressed. I think that he'll be a backup tight end in this league, but it really comes down to what your plan is long term. I think Addison can turn into something. So if it were me, I'm thinking Jacob Parrish, I think, would be I don't think he fits the measurables of what they want to do at the cornerback, which sucks. But and then this is tough because to me,
I'm thinking about taking
Martinez.
I'm thinking about taking a runner. I'm looking for a physical running back to pair with Caleb Johnson. 6 foot 232.
Young guy.
Me personally, I'd
let's go with Martinez. Let's get Marty Ball in full effect. Let's take Martinez too, and now we're just going to see how this board falls because I will say that you don't have a backup quarterback, so I wouldn't be upset with taking a quarterback to develop in round 5, depending on who's there. So we're just gonna again see how the board falls. So we're at pick 150.
Oh, to me, 150. Kyle McCord. This to me is a blinking red light.
Yeah, I like him out of Syracuse as well. I think where did he transferred from? Where did he transfer from? I had to look, but
he transferred from Ohio State.
That's where it was. Yeah, he was somewhere.
Here's the thing. I'm looking at CJ West, and I think he falls. I love CJ West. I think he's going to be an awesome player in the NFL. I get, we have the quarterback on the board. We might be able to hold a team up here for the quarterback because I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa Bay wants to come up and draft.
Well, why would they need they got Mayfield? Why would they need a quarterback?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if they say, hey, we like Baker, but let's see if we could possibly draft a quarterback.
So we have right. So we have 20 picks until we get to our bundles of picks. But again, I still like what I'm seeing. So here's what I'm thinking we can do. Where was it? I was looking. Go up again. I'm sorry.
I love CJ West. I would.
That's who I wanted. Yeah, that's I'm saying. Let's go with CJ West here, and then we can kind of start. Excuse me. We can start kind of taking our blanks or our ammunition and see what we can do because we're gonna have a ton of picks. We're almost there. All right, we're gonna.
Still on the
I
board.
think let's take him before some. So we're gonna take a quarterback to develop, and then
Let's see if any of these guys fit the measure. 6'2", 205. That could be somebody to look at. Elijah Clark, safety. That's somebody to look at as well.
yeah, I was again I because I have a buddy of mine that goes to Syracuse, so he has told me a lot about Clark, and I think that he would be nice here as well. Again, when I say, and I want to be very clear when I say that, I'm saying like for like depth purposes, I don't mean that this dude's going to be an all-pro. I think that a lot of these guys are
Exactly.
you're just looking to fill out the roster at this point. But you just got one pick, so I'm thinking, what about Jay Higgins from Iowa? Have you done
Hey,
any
let's
tape
do
on
it.
him?
I heard some good things.
I was gonna say like I
You
think
look at the
that
measurables here, and you look at the
I think let's go with Jay Higgins out of Iowa. I think that because I was just like I'm like trying to look at my 4th and 5th round dudes, and then I'm saying
and then
let's go with
Elijah Clark. I watched just a little bit of tape on Elijah
I
Clark.
like him. Because next year you're gonna have some dudes leaving the safety room, so there we go. And then I would say, because now we have 2 more picks remaining, and there goes Gaddison. I was hoping to get him in the 6th, but that's okay. Shit. This is just kind of like you pick who you want and you just live with it. I don't really care,
Yeah. Maybe we can.
Let's take a corner. Yeah, let's just take the corner again. Like I'm not gonna act like I know everybody. All I know is once you kind of get past the 4th and the 5th, it's kind of like you just pick dudes and hope they turn into something. No disrespect to these guys, but
yeah. So
and then the last one, let's
maybe we can reach for a little bit. Let's see what we can do in the trade.
I mean, they just want to move. Like I was gonna say if they're gonna move up, we're probably just gonna pick up like a 7th or something.
Yeah. More.
Let's just try it.
Yeah.
Too far of a drop maybe for them, or not really. I don't know why they. Honestly,
this is what we can do. We can get we can get that 257, and maybe we give him a round 7 for next year. But then again, that might be.
Well, no. So I don't have a problem. Look, it's a 7th round pick. The 7th round pick. So here's what I'm thinking. Let's go to the trade market. That's what I want to do.
You want to know what? I'm interested in this gentleman's trades here. 6'8", 344.
Let's just try it again. Like I want to be very clear. Like once you get to 7, like it's just darts. I don't have a problem. Like I'm not gonna tell you guys I know who that. Like I won't lie. I've heard the name because I am from Jersey, so I know some of the guys on the Rutgers team. But again, like once you get past that 5th round and some of the dudes that I already know about, kiss the baby. I don't really care at this point. So let's just see what we get the grade. I thought we did pretty well. Anybody in the chat can give us a grade as well.
I think we might get a pretty high grade on this one.
They're pretty low on B+, which isn't bad. I see the problem is how they grade some of these prospects. I think Kelvin Banks being a B- is pretty criminal. Yeah, I was gonna say let's download that. You could share that to Twitter and we can share what we did. But I think this was a fantastic draft. Let's kind of talk about it, right? Let's and then we'll get out of here. So in round 1, we traded down with the Saints. We traded up. I'm sorry. We traded up with the Saints. We swapped firsts. We gave up a 5th and we gave up a 7th in 2026. We went up. We selected Kelvin Banks Jr. We get that. We get our guard of the future for 10 plus years. And now our offensive line is going to be cooking. Starting off well with the setting up of Marty Schottenheimer's scheme, or Brian Schottenheimer's scheme, Marty Ball, Brian Ball, whatever we're going to call it. Then in round 2, what did we do? In round 2, we just stuck and put. We actually traded down. I'm sorry. We traded down with Seattle, and we got back a 5th round pick, and we got a 6th round pick in 2026. So we kind of recuperated what we lost in the Kelvin Banks trade. We took Caleb Johnson 6 picks down. I think that's a fantastic pick. We traded down again with the Steelers. We We went back, 9 spots. We got a 4th-round pick because of the QB tax, and we picked up a 7th-round pick in 2026. Now we're in the positives when it comes to us getting assets. With that, we traded down. We got Trey Harris for what was a great trade down. And then in round 4, with the pick that we got from the Steelers, we took Damian Martinez. And then we kind of just went with what we went with. CJ West, Kyle McCord. You get a guy that can develop behind Dak Prescott if he turns into something cool, if he turns into a backup, awesome. Jay Higgins, Elijah Clark, Jason Marshall Jr., and Holland Pierce. I think that all, to me, I would give this draft an A- or a B+ if the Cowboys do that. You get a ton of picks, you get a ton of guys, and you load up on picks for next year if you want to make some moves. I mean, what do you think, my guy?
Oh yeah, I love this draft because we had players that we wanted, right? You know, two players that we talked about were McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona, and Mason Graham, the defensive lineman from Michigan. So, you know, those guys weren't on the board. So we looked around that 9 range, saw 2 teams that could potentially draft offensive line. We traded up and we got a position of value. We improved our offensive line. I love our interior of the offensive line now. Hopefully Guyton can develop. And, you know, you have a very strong interior there with Beggs, Beebe, and Smith. And then you have Guyton at left tackle. And let's hope Steele can start to play a little better football here. And then, you know, you shored up the backfield here with Caleb Johnson and Damian Martinez. And you got a weapon for Dak with Trey Harris. That is a true X receiver. You got a defensive lineman that I think could be very good in this league with CJ West. You drafted a quarterback, develop him. We'll see what happens there. He can learn under Dak. You got a linebacker, a safety, corner, and then you have a developmental tackle. I love this draft. I really do.
I think it's great. I think it also sets you up for 2026 if you want to spend some money, because you have a large surplus of players coming in to help with this team. And I think that, unfortunately, with how the Joneses built their teams, this is what you need to do. But yeah, man. So we got a new head coach. We talked about what they need to do, set our expectations of what we want to see them do. And now we start doing mock drafts every week. We start seeing how these players move. We talk about what we're hearing and stuff like that. But look, man, you know, we at least now know what they did. We got the press conference is going to be going live in about 30 minutes. I'm going to just watch the replay because I'm probably going to take a nap because I just had like a 4-hour drive.
I want to air this out. Imagine talking draft can't be me when my team is playing in the Super Bowl. My guy, you are in a Cowboys stream. Why are you in a Cowboys stream when your team is in the Super Bowl? Go away.
Like, dude, who gives a shit, fam? Like, look, dude. If the Cowboys were in a Super Bowl, I would not be giving a damn what any other team's doing right now. And I'm not. I mean, like, dude, it is what. Hey, look, if you enjoy the show, awesome. Make sure to give us a like, subscribe if you love what we do.
Keep commenting on the.
Yeah, right. Hey, that's fine with me. But look, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because once the Cowboys are mathematically eliminated, I don't care what happens after that. I don't care if it's the Chiefs go get 3P, if the Eagles go win their second. I don't particularly care because, again, it's all I care about is who the Cowboys play in front of them. Right now, they're not playing anybody. They haven't played anybody in a month or two going on now. But actually, what we'll do, because this has run on a little bit because we did the whatchamacallit, the mock draft. If you guys have any questions, put them in the chat. But for this upcoming Super Bowl, man, preliminary thoughts. Who's winning it? Dude, I don't know why, but something tells me Philly is going to win it this go around.
I personally think that the Chiefs are going to win it just because Spagnuolo is the best big game coordinator there is. Jalen Hurts has ranked as one of the worst quarterbacks against the blitz. If you're bad against the blitz against Steve Spagnuolo, that is a recipe for disaster. I think that the Chiefs are going to be able to do enough. It'll be a very close game. I think the Chiefs will end up winning it at the end just because, you know, here's the thing. The Chiefs struggled against the run yesterday, but I think there's a difference between playing Jalen Hurts and playing Josh Allen. When you play Josh Allen, you're building your defensive game plan around stopping Josh Allen. When you play the Eagles, your defensive game plan is stopping Saquon Barkley. Do I think that the Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo can build a game plan to stop Saquon Barkley? Maybe not stop him, but maybe
Limit him
to 100 yards. I believe that they can do that. And look, people talk about, hey, this Eagles team is better than they were 2 years ago when they played them. The Chiefs, I personally think, are better than they were 2 years ago.
They're better than where here's the thing, and I want to add on to that. Think about it this way. They've added more into their receiver core. Their defense is better. But also, I think this is a minor thing that people don't talk about. The Chiefs have been battle tested all freaking year. They've won 17 straight one-possession games. And the thing is that with the Eagles,
that's not an accident, that's not luck.
That isn't luck. Like, dude, like you could talk about the refs and stuff like that. There are games that they should not have. Like they had special teams do their thing. They've had their defense do their thing. I think for the Eagles, while their run attack has improved from the last time they were in the Super Bowl, I think their passing offense has taken a back seat. And I think what's going to hurt them is when Kellen Moore, to Mark's point, they scored 55 points in the conference championship game, the most by any team. And that probably isn't going to be broken for a long, long time. But the thing is with Kellen Moore, we've seen how he does against Steve Spagnuolo. He doesn't do well. And I think that's my thing, is that their pass attack has gotten worse, arguably. Maybe not by much. So to me, I think maybe it's just me trying to jinx them. I think that the Eagles also, think about the pressure. The Chiefs aren't pressured to win this thing.
No.
Oh, you're just saying that because no, dude, the Eagles have all the pressure in the world because this is the second time they're back. They had one hell of a run and they're looking for revenge. The Chiefs have already won the last two Super Bowls. They are now, I want to say they're now the closest the team has been to three-peating because they've now made it to the Super Bowl. And I could be wrong on that. I apologize if I am. But that's my thing, dude. They've gotten so close. So freaking close. I mean, actually, that's not true because what was it? The Patriots got close, but they lost to the Eagles in 2017. Otherwise, they would have had a three-peat. But no, man, not to go on, because we're kind of wrapping this thing up. I think that for me, if Saquon Barkley doesn't have a big game, the Eagles are cooked. And Cowboys Thanos actually asked, and we'll close out on this because we know that Matt Eberflus is most likely going to be the head coach. I mean, that Matt head coach, the defensive coordinator. Who would you want as the offensive coordinator? Now, you want to go first on that?
I would like Brian Johnson. I do believe that Brian Johnson is a really good coach. I know he's there with the Commanders right now. That to me would be an awesome hire. I don't put Philly's lack of success on Brian Johnson last year. I put that on the fact that it's hard to build a complex offense around Jalen Hurts. It just is. He's a below average passer. And we're even seeing that with Kellen Moore. Like, look, Kellen Moore, is he basic? Yeah, he's a pretty basic offensive coordinator. But he does try and do creative things, so much so where I'm like, all right, you need to stop. Like, Kellen Moore wants his quarterbacks delivering balls in the middle of the field and, with doing these option routes and all that type of stuff. He can't do that with Jalen Hurts because of his lack of passing prowess. I think that's the same thing that happened with Brian Johnson. There are a lot of people high on Brian Johnson as a head coach. So if I'm the Cowboys, I'm scooping up Brian Johnson because he has that continuity with Dak. He's worked with Dak before, did a really good job developing Jaden Daniels. And again, I'll say it, and he does need to get some credit for developing Jalen Hurts. So that to me, would be the name. I get it. Anthony Lynn could potentially be the guy, but if I'm the Cowboys, and not only that, you're hurting a rival when you do that. So Brian Johnson would be the guy for me.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, Cowboys Thanos, thank you. No problem. Yeah, he was Dak's OC, so that would be more familiarity to me. there's a guy that got floated around, and I think they're just satisfying the Rooney Rule, but I would love if they got him. It's Kevin Goger from the Falcons, and he's a 35-year-old guy. He's been in coaching, since 2012. So he's been coaching since he's been young, right? And he was with the Packers for 2 years, 2019 and 2020, when Aaron Rodgers had his fantastic years. Then you talk about the Chargers. He was there for a little bit.
Is he
but
interviewing his OC, by the way?
he did interview as the
Okay.
OC.
Okay.
So I think I want someone that's young and not a retread, mainly because if Brian Schottenheimer's really trying to do it his way, go get someone young and let's just go with someone that understands the modern NFL.
I would love if we had a coach that had a tree of coaches come out from him. Like Dan Quinn is not a Mike McCarthy tree guy. Neither is Kellen Moore. Now, granted, I think Kellen's going to get that Saints job, by the way. I think that's a foregone conclusion. He's going to get that Saints job. But Jerry should hire Howie Roseman.
Yeah, he ain't doing that. His ego won't allow him to.
And here's the thing, right? I was saying this. I'm like, look, Jerry, when you were Howie Roseman's age, you had your time in the sun. You won Super Bowls when you were Howie Roseman's age. My guy, you're 82 years old. Just hang it up. It is what it is. Father Time defeated you. There's not a single person on this planet that Father Time hasn't defeated. So, when Howie Roseman is 82 years old, he's going to be on a beach with his family, enjoying the rest of his life, not in football operations, getting slandered every single day. Jerry, take a back seat. It's okay. But I like that idea because he does come from that Shanahan tree, which I mean, look, I want to get as many pieces from that Shanahan tree. And I want this team to have a tree of coaches. I would love for that because that means you have good coaches on your staff. So
yeah, for sure. So we ran a little bit over time, but we got the press conference coming up in 15 minutes. If you guys want to go check that out, you'll probably see that on the Cowboys YouTube channel. And also on Twitter, wherever they're going to probably broadcast it. But no, man, this was a great show. Once again, it was great kicking with you. We now know who the head coach is. Now at this point, like I think the next show for everyone else watching, what you're probably going to hear is like we're probably going to talk about who they brought in as the assistant coaches, because now that's the key point for me. Who do they bring in as the coordinators and assistant coaches? Because that's really going to make or break this hire for me. Is if it's the same dudes like Mike Solari and stuff, I'm going to be a bit upset. But I'm pretty optimistic they're building this. Maybe I'm being too optimistic, but they're building this coaching staff in a way that I like. So
I agree. I agree with you.
All right. Well, my man, was there anything else you had to say before we get out of here?
No. Except, hey, look, we're all blessed. It's honor to be here with you. And, I want to keep pushing this idea that every day you wake up with your eyes open and the people that you love healthy, it's always a great day. Everything else is a plus.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in for episode 4 of the Cowboys Roundup. If you are all about to head out, please hit the like button, subscribe to both of our channels. If you're watching this on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, make sure to hit that heart and retweet, all that other stuff. And we will catch you guys next week to see if we got some new coordinators.
Yep. See you, everybody.
See ya.
Make sure
Bye-bye.
to like and subscribe.
Yes.
And